Have you ever had a moment where one sentence ripped your world apart? One sentence that cut deeper than any wound, deeper than silence, deeper than death itself. I remember the day it happened. My son had just died. The house still smelled of lilies from the funeral. The air was heavy with incense and grief. I could barely breathe, and yet, in that suffocating quiet, my sister-in-law's voice broke through like glass shattering. She looked at me, her hand resting on her round belly, and said it so casually. "He died because of you. You weren't careful. You're a bad mother." I froze. I thought I'd misheard. Who says that to a grieving parent? My ears rang. My hands shook. My heart dropped in a way I didn't think was possible because I thought the worst had already happened. I lost my child. But in that instant, I realized I was about to lose something else. The illusion of family. And the worst part? Nobody stopped her. No one raised their voice. My husband's family, this polished, artistic clan in Los Angeles, sat in silence. Heads lowered, a cough, a shuffle, and then excuses. "She's pregnant, hormones. She didn't mean it." I remember staring at them, waiting for someone to step in, waiting for one voice to say, "That's cruel. That's wrong." But silence filled the room like smoke. And silence, I realized, is its own betrayal. Do you know what it feels like when the people you expect to catch you just watch you fall? I replayed the moment over and over. The living room lights were dim, the clinking of forks against plates, the smell of roasted chicken still fresh. The world looked normal, but everything inside me was unraveling. I wanted to scream, but my throat locked. All I managed was a whisper, "Say that again." Megan leaned back, smirking like she'd won something, and in that twisted smile, I saw it. She didn't regret the words. She wanted them to land. She wanted me to carry them like stones tied to my chest. And here's the truth. Part of me almost believed her. That's the cruelty of grief. You're raw, you're fragile, and the wrong words at the wrong time can plant roots. I asked myself if I had failed, if there was something I should have done, if being his mother wasn't enough. But then another thought hit me harder. If they could sit there, see me breaking, and choose comfort over courage, what did that say about this family? So I smiled, even with tears burning. I smiled because I needed her to know she hadn't destroyed me completely. I needed them all to see that their silence would be remembered. I said softly, almost too calmly, "I'll never forget this moment." And I didn't. Because that sentence, that one cruel sentence, became the crack that split everything open. Have you ever had your world end twice? Once with loss, and again with betrayal. That was my breaking point. Families look so perfect from the outside, don't they? The photos lined up on social media, smiles in coordinated outfits, holiday dinners around a polished table. You scroll past and think, they must have it all together. That's how my husband's family looked. An LA artistic dynasty, the kind of people who always seemed lit by better lighting. They had gallery openings, charity dinners, photo spreads in local magazines. The image was everything. Perfection was their language. And I was always the outsider, the one who didn't fit the frame. I grew up in a small desert town. My parents worked with their hands, dirt under the nails, grease on the shirts. Love was messy, loud, and imperfect. So when I first stepped into my husband's world, I thought maybe I could adapt. Maybe I could learn their polished rules. But no matter how I tried, straightening my hair before dinners, choosing the right shoes, practicing small talk, I always felt like the background, never the main subject. Megan, on the other hand, belonged. She was the golden daughter-in-law, tall, elegant, the kind who seemed born to be photographed. She knew which fork to use, which wine to order, when to laugh at the right volume. I used to admire her, maybe even envy her, until admiration soured into something else. Because the truth is, those glossy smiles, they hide cracks, deep cracks, and once you see them, you can't unsee. That night, after her words cut me, I watched how quickly they moved to smooth over the scene. My father-in-law cleared his throat, tried to change the subject. My mother-in-law patted Megan's hand and said, "She's under stress, you know. Pregnancy makes people emotional." My husband stared down at his plate, his jaw tight but his mouth shut. Image over truth, reputation over compassion. That was the unspoken rule. And I realized it wasn't just about Megan. She was cruel, yes, but the silence of the others, that was worse. Because silence means agreement. Silence means we'll protect her, not you. Do you know what it feels like to stand in a room full of people and feel invisible? To know they'll plaster smiles in the next family photo, but none of those smiles will be for you? Later that night, when the house was quiet, I walked past the framed pictures on the wall. Megan at her wedding, glowing in designer lace. Megan holding her first child, perfect curls arranged just so. Megan in the family Christmas card, her husband's arm around her waist, both of them laughing in matching sweaters. I studied those photos, one by one, and realized they weren't memories. They were props, every smile rehearsed, every frame staged. And I thought about my own photos, my son with chocolate smeared across his face after sneaking cake. My daughter asleep in the back seat, mouth open, hair tangled. My family wasn't polished, but it was real. That's when it hit me. Their version of family was about performance. Mine was about connection. And I was never going to perform well enough to belong in their portrait. So when Megan said what she said, when the silence followed, it wasn't just one cruel moment. It was the truth rising through the cracks. A truth they'd worked hard to paint over but couldn't contain anymore. I used to think family meant unconditional love, that blood meant loyalty. But standing there, surrounded by silence, I learned something darker. Family can also mean performance, obligation, and betrayal hidden behind pretty frames. I didn't cry that night. I stared at those photos until my eyes burned, and then I walked away. Because once you see the cracks, you can't unsee. And once you know the truth, you can't pretend to belong to a picture that was never meant to hold you. Silence has a sound. It's heavier than words, thicker than noise. It presses against your chest until you can't breathe. That night, their silence was louder than Megan's insult. "Let it go," my mother-in-law whispered. "She's pregnant. She didn't mean it." Her hand brushed mine for a second, soft but dismissive, like you'd calm a child after a tantrum. I pulled my hand back. She wasn't comforting me. She was protecting Megan. My father-in-law didn't even look at me. He sipped his wine, eyes fixed on the glass like he was studying its color, as if analyzing Cabernet was more important than confronting cruelty. And my husband? God, my husband sat with his jaw locked. I waited for him to speak, to defend me, to defend us. But his lips never opened. His silence cut deeper than Megan's words because he was supposed to be mine. He was supposed to choose me. Do you know that moment when you realize no one is coming to save you? That you're on your own, even in a room full of people who share your last name? That's where I was. I tried to speak again. "You don't get to say that," I told Megan, my voice trembling. "You don't get to blame me," she smirked. I didn't say anything untrue, and again, silence. I looked around the table, forks scraping plates, a cough, someone asking to pass the salt. Ordinary sounds, as if my entire world hadn't just cracked open. The normalcy of it was grotesque. I pushed back my chair. The legs screeched against the hardwood floor. "So, this is what family means to you," I said. No one looked up. "Her cruelty is acceptable, but my grief is inconvenient." Still silence. I walked out of the dining room, my chest heaving. In the hallway, I pressed my back against the wall, trying to steady myself. The air smelled of roasted garlic and wine, scents that once meant home, now curdled into something sickening. That's when I realized silence isn't neutral. Silence is a choice. It's alignment. And in that house, silence meant I was alone. Later that night, lying in bed, my husband finally whispered, "It's complicated." I turned to him. "No, it's simple. She attacked me, and you let her." He closed his eyes. I could see the weight on his face, the war inside him. But wars fought in silence leave casualties too, and I was bleeding from wounds no one would acknowledge. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling. The silence between us stretched like a canyon, and in that canyon, I heard the echo of every unspoken word, every swallowed truth. Have you ever felt invisible in your own marriage? Have you ever screamed inside your head while the person beside you said nothing at all? That night, I understood betrayal doesn't always come with shouts or slamming doors. Sometimes it comes with nothing at all, just silence. And silence, I learned, can be the cruelest answer. You think secrets are safe inside four walls. You think words tossed at a dinner table disappear into the air. But sometimes, truth has a way of escaping. And when it does, it changes everything. A week after that night, I was scrolling mindlessly, trying to numb myself. Social media had become background noise. Photos of strangers' vacations, ads for clothes I'd never buy, the occasional message of pity from people I barely knew. Then, suddenly, a video popped up. The caption read, "Listen to what she said at her nephew's funeral." My thumb froze, my stomach dropped. I tapped it, not sure I wanted to, and then I heard it. The voice I knew too well. Megan's voice. Clear, sharp, unapologetic. "He died because of you. You weren't careful. You're a bad mother." The room tilted. My chest tightened. I felt the blood drain from my face. It wasn't just that she had said it. I already knew that. It was that now the world knew too. Comments flooded beneath the video. "How could anyone say that to a grieving mom? This is monstrous. She should be ashamed." Strangers were defending me. Strangers were outraged on my behalf when my own family wasn't. I didn't know whether to feel vindicated or exposed. My grief had been cracked open and put on display for millions of eyes. People debated my pain as if it were a headline, but for the first time, I wasn't the only one carrying it. When I showed my husband, he stared at the screen, pale. "Who recorded this?" he whispered. I didn't know. Maybe a cousin, maybe a guest. It didn't matter. What mattered was that the silence that night was broken. The camera had refused to keep their secret. Megan's response came quickly, a carefully worded post. "I'm heartbroken my private words were twisted. I never meant to hurt anyone." A photo attached. Her hand on her belly, her husband's arm around her. Perfect lighting, perfect framing. The same performance I'd seen in those family portraits. But this time, the audience wasn't buying it. The comments shredded her mask. People pointed out the cruelty in her tone, the smugness in her smile. The internet doesn't always get it right, but that day it did. And yet, I couldn't celebrate. My grief was viral now. My son's name was on strangers' lips, my face plastered across gossip pages. Justice felt tainted when it came from exposure. I walked into the kitchen, phone buzzing with notifications, and leaned against the counter. The hum of the refrigerator was steady, grounding. I whispered to myself, this wasn't how I wanted the truth to come out. But then another thought pushed through. Maybe this was the only way it could. Because when families choose silence, sometimes it takes the world to make noise. That night, lying in bed, I replayed the video again and again. Her words still stung, but hearing strangers push back against them, it was like someone finally threw me a rope while I was drowning. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely alone. Have you ever had the truth thrown into the light when you least expected it? Have you ever realized that a secret you carried was never really yours to keep? That was the twist I never saw coming. The camera didn't lie, and it forced everyone else to face what they had tried to bury. The video changed everything, but it didn't fix everything. People online were outraged, yes. Friends texted me, co-workers whispered that they always suspected Megan wasn't as sweet as she looked. For the first time, the public stood beside me. But when the screen went dark, when the noise of comments and shares faded, I was still left inside my home, grieving, with a husband caught between me and his family. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, the glow of my phone still lighting up my face. My husband paced the floor, rubbing the back of his neck. He finally said, "Maybe it's time we step back from them just for a while." "For a while?" I asked. My voice was sharper than I meant, but I couldn't soften it. "They let her humiliate me." They sat in silence while she carved me open. "A while isn't enough." He stopped pacing. His eyes met mine. And for the first time, I saw it. The realization dawning on him. That silence had cost him too. That he couldn't straddle the line between loyalty to them and loyalty to me anymore. We talked for hours that night. About our kids, about the home we wanted to create, about the danger of raising them in a web where cruelty was excused as family. And slowly, we came to a decision. We would step away. Not just for a while, indefinitely. It wasn't a clean break. Nothing ever is. There were calls, texts, pleas from his parents. Don't throw away family over one mistake. Blood is blood. But I'd learned the hard way. Blood means nothing if it poisons you. So we drew boundaries. No more family dinners. No more holidays in that polished house. No more pretending. It hurt. God, it hurt. To imagine birthdays without grandparents, Christmas mornings without cousins. To explain to the kids why we wouldn't be visiting. But boundaries aren't built out of ease. They're built out of necessity. One night, as I tucked my daughter into bed, she asked, "Why don't we see Aunt Megan anymore?" I swallowed hard. "Because sometimes," I told her, "family hurts us instead of helping us. And when that happens, we have to choose what keeps us safe." Her little face frowned, like she was trying to solve a puzzle too big for her age, but she nodded, trusting me. And in that nod, I felt lighter. We started creating new traditions. Sunday mornings at the beach, just us. Pancake nights with neighbors who became more like siblings than my in-laws ever were. Small, simple rituals that stitched together something sturdier than bloodlines. Something real. And for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. Because boundaries aren't walls. They're doors you choose to close when the room inside is toxic. And once that door shut, I finally felt air again. Have you ever realized that walking away is the only way forward? That protecting yourself doesn't make you weak, it makes you whole? That's what boundaries gave me. Not revenge. Not justice wrapped in a headline. Just a chance to breathe again. Just when I thought the storm was finally dying down, Megan found a way to stir it again. That's the thing about people like her. They can't stand losing control of the story. It started with a notification from a friend. "Have you seen this?" she texted, followed by a link. My thumb hovered over the screen. My gut twisted. Already knowing it wouldn't be good, I tapped anyway. There she was, Megan, sitting in a perfectly lit room, her makeup flawless, her hand resting delicately on her belly, a vlog. Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it, trembling just enough to sound vulnerable. "I've been so hurt by the lies spreading about me," she said, eyes glossy with rehearsed tears. "That video?" It was taken out of context. I was grieving too. I would never attack a mother who just lost her child. I was trying to express concern, but it was twisted. I sat frozen, staring at the screen, She was good, too good. She knew exactly how to play the part, the victim, the misunderstood woman. And the comments were already flooding in. "Stay strong, Megan. We know the internet loves to twist things," quote. "You're pregnant. Stress isn't good for the baby. Ignore the haters. She's jealous of you. That's why she's trying to ruin your name." My chest tightened. After weeks of finally feeling like the world saw the truth, it was slipping again. Megan was rewriting the script, casting herself as the wounded heroine and me as the villain. I slammed the laptop shut and pressed my palms to my eyes. "Not again," I whispered. "I can't do this again." But it was happening. The tide of public opinion was shifting. DMs began to fill my inbox. Some supportive, but many cruel. Strangers telling me I was bitter, that I was using my child's death for attention, that Megan was the real victim. Do you know how it feels to be blamed twice for the same wound? To watch your pain weaponized against you again and again? My husband tried to calm me. "People will see through it," he said. But I wasn't so sure. Megan's performance was flawless, and the internet loves a good redemption arc. Nights became unbearable. I'd lie awake scrolling through the comments, each one a dagger. I'd catch myself whispering replies out loud, trying to defend myself to people who didn't know me, didn't care. My grief had become a debate. My pain had become entertainment. One evening, I sat on the balcony, the LA skyline glittering in the distance. The city buzzed with life, but I felt small, erased. I whispered into the night, "How do you fight someone who controls the story better than you?" Because that's what Megan was doing. She wasn't just fighting me, she was fighting for the narrative. And in a world where image is everything, sometimes the performance wins. But deep down, I held on to one truth. The camera doesn't lie. There had been a recording, there had been witnesses. Somewhere, the truth was still waiting. And though Megan's vlog was polished and her tears convincing, I couldn't forget the smirk she wore that night, the venom in her words. I knew who she really was. The question was, would anyone else believe me long enough to see it too? That was Megan's strike back. And once again, I found myself in the eye of the storm. The cruel thing about the internet is how quickly it turns. One moment, you're seen as the victim. The next, you're the villain. And once the tide shifts, it feels like you're drowning in voices that don't even know you. After Megan's vlog, my inbox became unbearable. I'd wake up to hundreds of notifications. Some messages were kind, but the cruel ones cut deeper. "Attention seeker. Get over it already. You should be ashamed. I stopped posting anything. Even sharing a picture of my kids at the park felt dangerous." I knew whatever I shared would be twisted into evidence against me. At work, whispers followed me too. Clients canceled shoots. A gallery quietly postponed an exhibit I'd been planning. I overheard someone say, "She's toxic. You don't want that kind of drama tied to your brand." That word, toxic, clung to me like smoke. Megan had managed to flip the script so well that even strangers saw me as the problem. At home, I tried to hold it together for my children. I smiled, I packed lunches, I read bedtime stories, but at night, after they fell asleep, I'd sit on the couch with my laptop, scrolling through comments until tears blurred the screen. My husband begged me to stop. "You're torturing yourself," he said, taking the computer from my lap, but I couldn't. It was like watching a fire spread. I couldn't look away, even as it burned me. The worst moment came one afternoon when I went to pick up my daughter from school. Another parent pulled me aside, lowering her voice. "I just want to say, I don't believe what people are saying online." "You seem like a good mom." I forced a smile. "Thank you." But inside, her words hollowed me out. Because if she needed to say that, it meant others were whispering about me behind closed doors. I drove home with my daughter in the back seat, her voice singing along to the radio. The sound was light, innocent, untouched by the noise that surrounded me. For a moment, I envied her world. Safe, small, untainted. That night, I sat on the balcony again. The city stretched out before me, alive and buzzing, but I felt like I was disappearing inside it. I don't know how much more I can take, I whispered to no one. Have you ever felt punished for the same wound twice? First by the person who caused it, and then by the crowd who decided it was your fault anyway? That's what it felt like. Isolated, misunderstood, alone against a noise so loud it drowned out my own voice. And yet, in that silence on the balcony, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't let Megan's story be the last word. Somewhere, somehow, the truth would speak again. I just had to survive long enough to hear it. Sometimes the truth hides in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to break through the noise. For weeks, I had been suffocating under Megan's performance. Her vlog was flawless, her story convincing. She had the public in her hands, and I felt powerless, erased. Then, one ordinary afternoon, everything shifted. I was in the kitchen when my phone buzzed with a message notification. It was from a friend I hadn't spoken to since the funeral. The text was short. "You need to see this." Attached was a video file. My hands shook as I tapped it open. The screen lit up, shaky at first, then steady. The setting was unmistakable, the living room at the funeral gathering, and there she was, Megan, her face calm, smug, her voice sharp as glass. "He died because of you. You weren't careful. You're a bad mother." The footage didn't cut off after that. It lingered, long enough to catch the silence of the room, the way everyone looked away, the way my husband pressed his lips tight but said nothing, the whole truth. No edits, no excuses. I dropped into a chair, breath caught in my throat. Tears blurred my vision, but I forced myself to keep watching, because this was it. Proof. Unfiltered. Within hours, the clip spread online. People who had doubted me flooded back into my messages. Comments lit up with fury. Not at me this time, but at her. This is the full story? How could anyone defend this? She lied in that vlog. She knew exactly what she was doing. That poor mother. I can't believe she went through this. The tide was turning. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt air rush into my lungs. When I showed the video to my husband, he stared at the screen in silence, his face drained of color. "There's no denying it now," he whispered. He rubbed his temples like the weight of months was crashing down at once. She can't spin this anymore. But it wasn't just Megan. It was everyone in that room. The video exposed them too, their silence, their refusal to defend me. And the internet saw it. Strangers asked in the comments, why didn't anyone speak up? Her whole family sat there and said nothing? The shame spread wider than Megan. Of course, Megan tried to respond. Another post, another set of tears. But this time, it didn't land. The internet had seen the smirk, the venom in her tone, the silence that followed. No lighting, no careful words could erase what the raw footage revealed. For me, it wasn't about revenge. It was about breathing again, about knowing I wasn't crazy, I wasn't exaggerating. The truth had been buried under their silence, and now it was undeniable. That night, for the first time in months, I slept. Not deeply, not peacefully, but I closed my eyes and didn't wake every hour to scroll through hate. I let the weight slide, just a little, off my shoulders. Do you know that moment when the ground stops shaking, even if just for a second? That was my moment. The witness had appeared. The truth had found its voice. And I realized something powerful. Sometimes you don't have to fight the noise. Sometimes you just have to wait for the silence to break itself. The video spread faster than I could keep up. By morning, it was everywhere. Reposted on forums, clipped into reaction videos, dissected on podcasts. People weren't just talking about Megan's cruelty anymore. They were talking about the silence. My silence that night wasn't the focus. It was theirs. The family who sat frozen, who chose image over compassion. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to defend myself. The truth was standing on its own. Megan tried to claw her way back. Another post, this one more desperate. She claimed she had been provoked, that I had twisted the narrative. But it didn't matter. The unedited clip was too raw, too damning. People could see for themselves. There was no angle to hide behind. I expected to feel triumphant, to feel like I'd won. But instead, I just felt quiet. Because revenge had never been my goal. What I wanted, what I had begged for, was acknowledgement. Validation that what happened was real, that I hadn't imagined the cruelty, and now I had it. Not from my family, not yet, but from the world outside them. I scrolled through comments, my hands trembling. This poor woman deserves an apology. I hope she finds peace away from that family. She's stronger than she knows. Strangers, people who didn't know me, were saying the words I'd longed to hear from those who should have loved me most. That night, I sat with my husband. The glow of the laptop lit his face as he read through the messages. "They see it now," he whispered, his voice cracked. "They finally see what you went through." I looked at him. "But do you?" He didn't answer right away. Then he nodded, slow, heavy. "I failed you that night. Every night after, when I stayed quiet. I thought I was keeping the peace. But I let you carry this alone." His words didn't erase the pain, but they mattered. Because justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about finally being seen. I had a choice then. I could use the video to drag Megan through every corner of the internet to make sure her name was burned into shame. Or I could let it be what it already was. The truth, plain and undeniable. So I chose silence. Not the silence that betrayed me, but a new kind. The silence of letting go. I didn't post a response. I didn't clap back or celebrate. I let the video speak for itself. Because sometimes the quietest stance is the loudest message. And slowly, the noise around me changed. People stopped questioning me. The DMs of hate dwindled. Invitations to collaborate returned. My name wasn't tied to Megan's anymore. It was tied to resilience. Do you know what it feels like to stop fighting and finally rest? To know the truth stands on its own, even if you never lift another finger? That was my justice. Not revenge. Just truth. Finally standing tall. Finally undeniable. I used to believe family was something fixed, like bloodlines carved in stone. You're born into it, you endure it, you protect it, no matter what. That belief kept me bound to people who let me break in silence. But grief and betrayal have a way of shattering old myths. They strip you down until all that's left is truth. And my truth was simple. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shares your burdens. After the video, after the world finally saw what I'd lived, the calls came. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, even Megan, leaving voicemails dripping with practiced sorrow. "We never meant to hurt you. Let's put this behind us. We're still family." But I didn't answer. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I had already heard their silence once. And silence, in its own way, is an answer that can't be taken back. Instead, I poured my energy into rebuilding something new. Small steps at first, inviting neighbors for Sunday pancakes, letting friends drop by unannounced with wine and laughter, watching my kids' faces light up as people clapped for their messy dance shows in the living room. Slowly, I realized something. Love doesn't need a last name. Connection doesn't require a family tree. Sometimes the people who lift you are the ones you find along the way. One night, as I tucked my daughter in, she whispered, "Mom, is Megan still mad at you?" I sat beside her, brushing her hair back from her forehead. "Maybe," I said honestly, "but it doesn't matter anymore." "Why?" she asked, her eyes wide. Because we don't need everyone to love us. We just need the right people to love us the right way. She thought about that for a long moment, then smiled. Like pancakes on Sundays? Exactly, I said, kissing her forehead. I carried that smile with me into the living room where my husband was waiting. He looked at me, hesitant, as though searching for signs of the old wound. Do you think we'll ever go back? He asked quietly. No, I said. My voice was steady, certain. We don't go back to silence. We move forward to something better. He nodded, and for the first time, I believed he understood. Life didn't magically become easy. Grief doesn't dissolve just because justice shows its face. There are still mornings when I wake with the ache of loss heavy in my chest. Nights when the memory of Megan's words cuts like a reopened scar. But there's also laughter now, new traditions. A circle of people who choose to stay, not out of obligation, but out of love. And that, I realized, is what family truly is. Not the ones who let you bleed quietly, but the ones who hand you a bandage and sit with you in the dark. Have you ever lost something so deeply that you thought you'd never breathe again? And then, piece by piece, discovered that what you gained in its place was stronger, softer, truer? That's what happened to me. My world didn't end. It shifted. And in that shift, I found a different kind of family. One built not on silence, but on love that speaks. Love that shows up. Love that stays. Estimated word count, 1,501.